Transitioning, I know that there's been questions and concerns about, transitioning between age divisions and, having to change forms, and that's why the forms basically are asking for the current year's information, and it's not one of those like, oh great, we just did, this is my kid's last year as a junior, and then we're going to have to switch to new forms next year, and we're going to have to figure out how to get all the information from those junior forms into our intermediate forms. That's not the case. That's why each of the forms are focusing on current year, and then they're just going to keep adding on their forms. Now, granted, their record books are going to end up being a little thicker by the end of their college career, and if it ends up that, by the time they're a senior, they weigh 10 pounds, we may have to edit the guidelines a little bit about how much to include in there. But, we didn't want there to have to be the concern about trying to cut and paste all the data from a junior form into an intermediate form or an intermediate form into a senior form. And so basically each year a member will add their new report forms and other required documents on top of their old report forms. So when we say old report forms, we don't need their previous year's stories. Mom can stick that in a file at home for keepsake. We really just need their report forms that have the meat and potatoes of their project involvement. And so for judging purposes, each year, all ages will need to do the updated personal information page. The juniors will only be judged based on their current year's report forms. Intermediates will be judged on 2 years of report forms. So again, their first form only has the current year's information, and then they include the form from the year before that, so that we've got 2 years to compare to. And then seniors will be on the 4 most current years report forms. And then certainly, intermediates and seniors will need to complete a new story and photo portfolio every year as part of the judging process. Another thing that, like I said, I mentioned early on is trying to come up with a new way to assess and evaluate record books, and so we're working on putting the final touches on that, but basically a rubric or chart format has been developed to allow judges to simply check a box that best describes their assessment of each section of the record book. And then certainly there's still space to allow for written comments that we still will continue to encourage next to each section, and then even a bigger block on the back of the score sheet. But hopefully, by looking at when a family gets their score sheets back, they can, simply, even if there's limited comments put on their score sheet, they can look at which column holds the most check marks, if it needs improvement or, excellent job, to kind of figure out where they stood on their record book, or they can tell what areas they probably need to strengthen. So this is a very short snapshot, and I know it might be printed small and hard to read, but of course we're editing some of the criteria over here based on the different age divisions. But if they're the judge is looking at their story and photo portfolio and at the overall organization, the description of that is the story is very well organized. One idea follows another in a logical sequence with clear transition. So if, as a judge, you feel like they did a very good job on that, you certainly would check completely. If you felt like that, wow, they were just all over the board on their story and it wasn't organized very well, you would probably, check somewhat or not at all, and then again could still write some comments in there. So this is just a little piece of the score sheet that I just wanted to include to be able to pull up on the screens for y'all to be able to see. But essentially the judges would have to check a box, next to each criteria, and hopefully give the families a little more feedback and assessment to know where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. Yes, Laura, there will be different score sheets for the different age divisions, simply because we're asking for different information on the forms, and so that we make sure that they're evaluated appropriately. So there will be different score sheets.